All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have our very own Larry Maugham. He is going to be teaching us how to use carbide tip tools beyond what the normal manufacturer's specs are. So how to use them, he's very, very versed on them. How long you been using them? A decade? A lot longer than I have. So tonight, Larry Maugham.
You know, this is one of those nights where I wasn't sure if you were going to be here or not. First of all, it's a very nice night outside, so that it's not a weather issue. But when the topic of carbide tip tools comes up, the question, you know, I know some folks will say, well, I don't have any of those, so I'm not going to stay. Other folks are brand new. Well, I have to stay because I don't know how to use these. So you got the new turners, you got the veteran turners, and all sorts of some. How many of you have at least one of the Easy Wood tools? Let me see. Okay, you're the only ones that qualify. So, Sharon, this is a level. It won't work on round tools. I want you to take it and give it to everyone that had their hand up. So only those with their hands up get one of these because it'll only work on the flat Easy Wood lathes, tools. Okay? Now, I was glad when I talked with different manufacturers. In the course of this evening, I will have over $500 worth of tools and handouts, shirts, hats, so forth, to give away. And I know some folks couldn't stay for this part. They had to leave, distance, so on and so forth. And I really didn't want them to leave with a tool. I wanted you to have the opportunity to get the tool. Now, when we get these blue tickets back in my half and we stop and pull something, if you don't want a hat, fine, just say so. Or if you don't want something else, just say so. But that blue ticket is only good for tonight, no other night. And I'm glad that some of you have tools, and one of the purposes of tonight is to really kind of clarify maybe some new ideas, but at least get the basics done. Okay. Oh, Sharon, there you are. You're on the level. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as was mentioned a moment ago, I bought my first Easy Wood tool in 2009. They started in production 2008, and then I've got some other tools since then and so forth. So it's not been a long time. I'll be showing in some of the Woodpecker tools, and they just started last year. You may be familiar with the Woodpecker brand for flat work, straight edges and so on and so forth, and in your catalog, lots of stuff. But their turning tools just began last year. I've got a full set of Rockler turning tools, square, round, diamond. That set only sells for $219. Yes. Okay. Too tight? All right. This right here is another Rockler tool, but it is used in hollowing. It has the curved venue in it, or curved nest. And then the other one that is a brand new one from Easy Wood Tool, and I'll try to watch the monitor there. This is the new Midsize micro detailer from Easy Wood. This has the point on it. It's not the rounded tip diamond. It's the really fine point, and you'll see some stuff going around. There's, I think it's $125 that we're going to be giving away in just a few minutes. Plus hats and shirts and so forth. So, matter of fact, let's just go ahead and pull a number. I'm going to keep
Everybody get a ticket.
and turned in the other half.
So we're going to call out numbers.
Now this will be just the number. You don't. I'll call the last 3 digits, and let's see. Why don't I put it right there? That way it won't be too far away. Okay, this is for a hat or a T-shirt. The last 3 digits, 319. Okay, and do you want a hat or do you want a T-shirt? T-shirt. And what size? What? Just give me small, medium, large. Large. Okay, don't make it tough on me now. All right, and they should, you can see John on the ticket there. Good, there we go. All right, so that's great. Thank you very much. Here's what I'm going to be covering, and this is a little bit different promotion in that I'm not literally making a bowl or making a vessel or I'll do parts, but I'm actually going to talk about it, and then show some stuff that's made. Some of you really don't know what you could do with an easy wood tool, or a carbide cutter anyway. I'm going to talk about roughing, tenons, beads and coves, bowls, and turning acrylic in less than an hour. Okay, that'll be a challenge in and of itself. All right. I would also tell you that by next month, and Paul, you may know when the next month's magazine comes out, but in next month's Woodcraft catalog, or not catalog, their magazine, is an article on Carbide Gets a Turn. Let's see, Ken, I'll put that down right there. Maybe it'll come up for you. Okay, well, at the top of it, it says Carbide Gets a Turn. Can insert tooling replace traditional high-speed steel tools? See what happens when 4 veterans tackle turning tasks with carbide cutters. And so these veterans that are used to the conventional tools, high-speed steel tools, and the results of what they did and the response and so forth is coming out in next month's Woodcraft magazine. So I'm looking forward to. You may learn a lot. I didn't learn too much from that because I've been doing this so long and know the other brands and so forth. But it is very. Always remember that in your turning, safety. Glasses, safety glasses. I'm not wearing a face shield tonight because we know what that does in the muffled sound, and it makes it difficult for you. Smock of some kind, unless you want to pick the chips out of your flannel shirt, is helpful. One of the things I'm not going to be doing is ranking. I'm going to try to point out positive qualities of all the brands. I have my preferences, and you will too. But I'm not up here to promote one brand over another. I'm just giving information. Tell me, what are the basic shapes? Those of you who have tools or seen it, what are the basic carbide cutter shapes typically? Okay, square, circle or round, and diamond. Yeah, I don't know of any other shapes really on the market other than that. Well, there are some triangular, and I can tell you that if you were trying to turn, for sure, metal, it uses a triangular tip. That's a metal carbide strip with a carbide tip, and that's what they use in metal. What the manufacturers you're going to see represented here take that basic idea and have adjusted not only the type of carbide, the shape of carbide, the size of carbide, and so forth to try to make it fit. There's one other one that you didn't mention. Well, that is true. Most all of them, thank you, most all of them have now from Easy Wood Tool a negative rake where the flat has been cut at a bevel, slight, and so forth. But there is a tool right here that parting tool, and that has more of a square cutter on it. So a parting tool this is mine. I've been using this same cutter. Okay, oh, there you go. I need to look at my monitor, don't I? There we go. Okay, there you go. I've been using this carbide cutter as a parting tool pretty much on very hard woods for the last year and a half. And I've never gone to, well, you can't sharpen this one. So it's one of the things that has come out recently, for those of you who are more the traditional turners, what we all know is you have to stop at some point and go sharpen. You go to your grind wheel, get the right angle set, and sharpen. It's now been shown that a carbide tip from the better brands, not all are the same, it will replace your trip to the grinder at least 100 to 120 times that you won't have to go to the grinder in the course of getting that to a dull. And that's basically going around the circle or the square, so forth. 100 to 120 times will save you from going and sharpening. You can be turning. So that's fairly significant. Not all, well, let me ask this. Are all carbide cutters the same? Okay, and that is the correct answer. Let me kind of liken it, because I've heard folks say, well, aren't they all the same? Or did they all come off of a planer or a thickness, something, a joiner? No, not these. They're all designed specifically for wood turning cutting. You pretty well, because I hear folks talk about, well, I bought my carbide cutters for $5 a piece. And the ones at other stores may cost $15, $16. And what's the difference? Well, I've learned in doing research for this that the $5 ones are made in China, are imported by the thousands, and oftentimes are used on planers and jointers and so forth. What I'm going to be showing you from both Easy Wood Tool and the Woodpecker brand, I know for a fact, are made here in the United States and specific using nano carbide and so forth. Much better quality than much tighter grain and so forth. So not all the carbide is the same. You may find it cheaper, but that may mean that you go through that edge faster. What I'm going to try to do is watch my watch carefully, and before the end, give you time, because you've either heard or wondered things about carbide cutters. And I'll either tell you what I know or I'll tell you I don't know. But we'll get an answer as best we can. Okay. The tool rest, setting up the tool rest is very important and usually different than the traditional tools. What you try to do is with your tool sitting on top, you're trying to look at, with it level to the ground, you're trying to get it basically in the center, the tip. So I'm usually kind of going off of the live center at the end and keeping it level. One main difference that is difficult in the beginning to get used to from the traditional tools, like a bowl gouge and other, to carbide is you don't have to get off level much. Whereas we know in a traditional bowl gouge, you're starting at one spot and coming in and so forth. So watch for things that, if you're not doing carbide much, watch for things that I'm doing, and we can talk about that and so forth, because there's a learning curve that you have to unlearn to use these. Okay, let me kind of begin. I'm going to start doing some roughing, and pretty much all of you know, Charlie, what kind of wood is that? Yes? Zebra wood. So we know that that's not a softwood, not a very soft wood. So this is, as you know, whether it's a bowl or other, you're going to need to get it round. I have a roughing gouge. Haven't used it in a long time. Still relatively sharp, but I'm going to Let's see if I can get our... There we go. And all I'm going to do is, in a fairly quick manner, and you evaluate this, whether that's kind of what you do with a roughing gouge. I'm just going to... This is where I normally have a face shield on, and I'm normally not talking. And if I want to get it really pretty smooth, I can do a shear cut. I was. Now, yeah, I'll just jump into that now. And the Woodpecker brand, one of their areas of, quote, improvement over the Easy Wood. Basically, if you don't know this, Easy Wood started this whole trend. And the way they talk and teach is you have the tool on the tool rest and level to the ground. What I discovered early on was that there are some woods that chip. If they've got knots or other things, the wood may tear apart. And I learned pretty quickly, using the same shape, what they call the rougher. Where'd it go? Right here. That if I was coming in here just like I just did, let's see, Ken, okay, that's a great shot. I can come in and kind of tip it to a slight angle on that edge. Now, again, I would make sure you've got a tool rest that is really flat. If you get a tool rest that has chips and so forth, and you haven't filed it back down, that's going to be difficult to do. But I can come in here with the flat bottom on the Easy Wood tool, lay it down, and just come in on and I can now make shavings. Woodpeckers calling theirs the shear cut. Well, I can shear cut with this as well. But what Woodpecker did was that they took their brand, and I shouldn't have put it back. Okay. And, okay, Ken, I'm going to try to lay this, yeah, right there. I'll watch my monitor. They've come in, if you don't know this, and you may see it in them, they've put a bevel on the underside to kind of help you. If you're going, whichever way you're going, you can find that 45 and do a shear cut by laying it on the bevel. So there's flat. You've got the flat side. But then on each side is a bevel. I've used both tools. I guess maybe I'm so used to using Easy Wood and rolling it over on the edge that I don't even notice it. But that may be something that would help you. That may be a factor that you like to use. I will tell you that Woodpecker uses like a 5/8 steel. Easy Wood uses, in their full size, that's a 1/2 inch stainless steel. And I asked the president of Easy Wood, I said, why did you choose stainless steel? Doesn't rust. So, don't know that that's that big a factor. It's just what they started back in 2008 doing. And those of you with that who got the free levels, let me point this out right here. You'll see it in different positions. I've seen it in the brochures that the level was way back here by the handle. And what I was having to do in order to kind of keep myself level, I'm looking at my cutting tool, looking way back, and then looking again. Didn't like to do that. So I've moved my level up within a few inches of there. So I literally can stay here, and almost in my peripheral vision, I can see whether that level is on it or not. Once you're used to using the carbide tools and the level to the ground, that's a whole new body habit, and you don't use it too much. But in the beginning, I've certainly seen folks that had their handle way down here, and wondering, why is this not cutting? Well, wasn't designed that way. Really doesn't have the bevel that your conventional tools have. You start it on the bevel and raise the handle till it starts cutting. This, you can literally come straight in and do your cutting. What I have also found, this one has a radius cut. On the squares, most of the manufacturers have either a perfectly square, a 2-inch radius, or a 4-inch radius. And the 2 and the 4 inches pull that tip back a little ways so that you're not tending to catch an edge and leave a gouged mark. I personally prefer that, but I have some when I want to get a real sharp point, particularly in roughing and so forth. Okay, let's stop and do another drawing. How's hearing? It's okay? Okay. Okay. Trying to think of what. I'll tell you what. We're going to do two. Here's one number. Last digit's 370. Okay, in the back. And would you like a hat or a T-shirt? Okay. All right. And that fits and can be adjusted. Come on down, get it, or get it halfway, whatever. Let me get another number. Yeah. Okay, another number. 348. Hat or T-shirt? T-shirt. Size. Large. Okay, good. All right, while we're getting those, let me make a transition to any questions on roughing in general. I know we do it, we know it, and so forth. Okay, good question. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Because I do want, the question was, how does this texture on here compare to doing with a skew? And what I'm going to do is, and I'll be doing this quite a bit tonight, as soon as I get that off, is I'm going to pass it around. Charlie, hand that right back to him, and then keep the go. I'm not sure how, well, as different things come back around, you can hand them to John. He can put them over here, or so forth. But I'm going to be handing quite a bit of stuff out to go around for show and tell rather than doing this. One of the things that I'm using from Easy Wood that nobody else has is this chuck. They manufactured a chuck. Anyone else besides me in the room? You have? Gary does? Okay. What do you think about it? Works? Okay. Yeah. This chuck comes manufactured with the thread for your lathe. I've got one that I got 7 years ago that's a 1x8 for my bench top. I've got the second one now that I've got a bigger lathe. This is a 1 1/4 by 8. That's what this one is. What's interesting, the chuck is made totally in the USA. Every part, wiggle, everything is made in USA. And I'm sorry, I'm covering all that up. And the one thing that I know that I didn't like to do with my other brands is loosen 8 screws to change the jaws. I can change these 4 jaws in less than 20 seconds. And I've got jaws that will go from a pin blank to the base of a 24-inch bowl or platter or whatever. Will all fit one body. So it was invented with one body in mind. This is essentially a $200 chuck with $200 worth of additions. So I literally can come in here, and with this 1/8-inch Allen wrench, I can come in here and pull all these jaws off and put a whole nother set on. Okay? The other question it came up with, because it's known fact that the bolts that you screw your jaws into your body of your chuck, they can break. They can shear off. Well, the question in invention was, how much could this? You don't want these little, that comes off so quick, you don't want it to mess up. They took one jaw, welded to that jaw a chain, a heavy-duty metal chain, put the jaw into the chuck, ran a bar through the chuck, tied the chain to the bumper of a Ford F-150 pickup. And then with a lift they ran with that bar, they began to lift up, took the tension out, and literally lifted the back end of a Ford pickup off the ground with one jaw. Figure, probably pretty good. That's about 4,500 pounds that it's going to hold, so that kind of ended that. The other thing that this has, quickly I'll show this. If you want to adjust the size and make it bigger or smaller, there's a scroll piece right here that I'm holding, and I can literally take that from, and you can probably see right there, I've gone from a small crack to much bigger. And then, once you've got it fairly close, you use a wrench to tighten it up closer. That is true. Yeah, thank you, Gary. It doesn't matter where these jaws go when you put them back on. You've taken them off, put them on, and so forth. These are all made so exacting that they'll fit in any place. The other thing, and if you've got other brands that on the jaw, Ken, I'm going to come right down up close. Do what? Does the chuck come with one set of jaws? Yes, it does. And then you can buy others. 55 to 60. But if you'll notice, that's rounded. I started to say, he rounded his, and I would encourage you to do that no matter what brand.
Do you know if they have any plans to make a smaller body chuck like a Talon?
Okay.
A big one?
And did you hear the question? I'm going to repeat it because on the tape, you don't know what he just asked, even though we all heard it. And the question is, is Easy Wood planning to make a smaller body?
Right.
And the answer is, I don't know. My guess is no, because they've got one body that weighs about 4.5 pounds that can take from a pen blank to a large base on one. So I've got doubts. But if your jaws aren't rounded, go to your grinder and try to round them off a little bit so that if you ever get hit, it's maybe bruising you, but it's not tearing skin away from your hand and arm and wherever. Okay. Any other questions on that chuck? I know I went through that. When it comes, let's see. Well, it also comes with a set of jaws, and it comes with, I'll hold this right up here for you, Ken. There's a screw. Nothing new, except this is double-ended. One end is longer than the other, and these will self-thread on the screws. Now, what I have done is I've used this one. And this will become a bowl of some figured maple, tiger maple. Let me move my tail. And all I have to do in this case is just run. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, you'll notice that one of my favorite approaches is to glue a block onto what becomes the base. And I will tell you, don't use pine or some other light woods. Use something of a little more dense, like maple. And that way it'll, this is just a leftover piece, and I've made a tenon. The reason I'm showing this piece right here, until I get this shape done, and then I'll take and hollow it. I've put the tenon on the tenon right there. I put the bevel, and on this particular chuck, it's a dovetail. Okay, some of them aren't, so you need to know what yours is. But one of the things that I noticed when I started turning this week, this piece of, is that there's a fair amount, just using it square to the body. I've got some tear out, kind of right where that pencil line is, if you can see it. And that was with the rougher. Here, this part down here is really quite smooth. So from a sanding standpoint, I don't have to do too much down in here, but I'd be sanding a lot to there. So while I've got this right here, let me just go ahead and show you what I'm doing. Okay. In this case, I'm going to use the round cutter. Could use the square on the outside too. And I'm going to purposefully, because I know when I did this that I made a bevel cut up here. So I rotated it. Now let's see if I can get. And I don't think front row you're going to have to watch out for any of this, other than maybe some fluff coming at you. I may have to turn and go to the square. One thing that is a little difficult, I know why they said make a rougher to start with, and then you go to the finisher, the round, and so forth. But quite frankly, sometimes I will start with the finisher, and it's cutting only a small radius, a small portion in there, and then I'll come back with the rougher to flatten it, to get a nice flat side. So detailer, the diamond shaped, is kind of difficult to do unless you're doing things down in. Okay, let me stop that and see. Okay. Pretty well right where that was really that end grain coming up. I've got that now pretty smooth. So what I can do with this bowl now is literally to come back and take out that screw and flip it around. Now, one question, while I've still got this. I know she's not here. I know that Sue Bowles is not here, but she specifically asked me to show how do you make a tenon with just the carbide tip tools. Do you have something that you use regularly of a conventional tool that's kind of the right shape to get your, no? Yes? A Badan. Fine. Okay. But literally, I made this just with my carbide tips. So I didn't have to buy another tool. The same tool I'm using for other things, I can do it with that. So I literally came in with the, where's my, came in with my parter. Oop, let me get that in there. And so I can come in here with the parting tool. And you will find certain sizes of tenons that work best for you and what you like. And then I can come back in with the diamond. Now this happens to be the new detailer with a really sharp point. I come in here and get my angle. And so with two tools I've already been using, now I've created the dovetail angle on the tenon. So, your witness, when you see Sue, you can say that I showed her, she asked to have it done and I did it. So, sorry she missed. And that'll be on the tape forever and ever. While I'm changing out, have any of you from any of the other clubs seen this topic discussed? I know some of you rotate around to different clubs. I tried to look and see who's done this topic before of just carbide tip tools. Okay, you're the first club to hear this, to be knowledgeable enough. Okay, let's do another drawing. Tell you what, let's do one of the tools. Okay. I just showed the micro detailer with the point. $125 or more. Okay, the number is 355. All right, Fred, there you go. There you go. Now, okay, for all of you, but particularly for Fred, there are two detailers. There's one that's a little bigger and has a slightly rounded tip. And this one is slightly smaller with a very sharp pointed tip. Both Easy Wood and Woodpecker make both. But the answer is, Fred, that you can't put the big rounded tip into that one. And that one with the sharp tip won't go into the other detailer. Okay, let's see. Do what now? Draw another number? Okay. You may be able to see it on my finger there that this one has kind of a round point. And the other one comes to a real sharp point. So one of the things you're watching for any brand of carbide cutter is how is the carbide supported underneath. I'm going to turn this one over. And if you look and see, it's supported well on any of the Easy Wood tools. They're supported well on the Woodpecker brand. But I can tell you, I could name names, but I won't. There's a tool out there right now that has one shank for the square, the round, and the diamond. So it fits pretty nicely for the round, but when you change it to the square, you've got all sorts of carbide hanging out on the side. I don't think I have it with me, but I've got examples of where that carbide broke off when someone dropped the tool, or just, and if it were to break while you're turning, you've got a piece of carbide that can cut really deep. So when you're looking at anybody's brand of tools, turn it over to see on the square, is that supported? On the round, is that? So forth. Otherwise, you may be walking into a problem that you didn't anticipate walking into. Yes.
On the square one, you can turn that.
Okay.
Turn the tip on the square, use all four sides.
And that's what you do. Yeah, exactly what you do. Some of it may just be by feel. It's pretty easy. And the same thing when you're using conventional. Sometimes you say, oh, I'm having to push harder. It just doesn't seem to be cutting right. That may be the feel. But I can also tell you that, let's see. Okay, Ken, I'm going to come from over the top and write down. And keep in mind, on the square cutter, you can not only use this side, but that side. Or even this side, really, but those two. But you'll see some resin buildup on those sides. You'll begin to see some darkening. Both on that one as well as the round, usually are much easier to see. Sorry about that. I use this one and then I rotate it. So Susan, you may be able to see down here some of the resin. The light's not helping me very well, but that's okay. One thing, let me point this out. Just as a comparison. Okay. Where's my square? Right there. I'll get round to round. If you look at the Woodpecker brand And it's one of their claim is that it's polished, and you may be even able to see it in the monitor, kind of a glare. On Easy Wood Tool, it's more of a satin color. You don't see a lot of glare. So when I first came across Woodpecker, one of the things that they said was it is polished for sharpness. I didn't realize you had to polish carbide. What I found out in doing some deeper research is as this is very good material, but as you polish that, if you go to a microscope, you're going to find little chips on the edge of the polished. So the research indicated that you go to a certain level with the satin color, and that's got a real good cutting edge, but it's not chipping out. But I will tell you that having used both of these, this is going to exceed some conventional tools like crazy. Yeah, Charlie.
Are the cutters interchangeable between the two brands?
Okay, in this case, these are. Literally, well, I know that Easy Wood came out almost a decade before, and I don't know if Woodpecker copied. All I can tell you is these use the same thread and the same cutter size and so forth. I could literally take this one off and put it on this one and vice versa. But your question of can these be interchanged, there are other brands out there that maybe even say in their promotional material can interchange. Well, yeah, it may fit the right size, but it has a different hole size. Or it uses a screw thread that has a top rather than a bead or a inlay that comes in. So the answer is not all of them will interchange. And some of them shouldn't. I wouldn't want to put something with a really cruddy carbide into a nice tool. But, yeah.
Hunter tools use a metric screw.
That's true.
They make a much smaller cutter than Easy Wood or Woodpecker.
That is true.
Small one in diameter.
Now there is the tip of a hunter. So that does take a different threaded to get in there and so forth. Now the quality of the carbon is good, very good. But they make, it seems like it's a 3 millimeter and a 6 millimeter, two different sizes. So they're not all as big as the Easy Wood and the Woodpecker.
Those work a lot better on Christmas ornaments
Okay?
than anything I found.
Okay. And keep in mind, and you got it in your brochure, the Easy Wood, there are multiple sizes of round, going from, I don't know if I have the smallest, but you can easily see, well, that's square. Well, this one may do it. Okay. All right, Ken, I'm going to try to be right over the top. There's two sets around. And one of them, and this one on the smaller size will go both with the straight as well as this happens to be one of the curved hollowing tools.
Is that as small as that Hunter?
It's even a little bigger than Hunter.
It is bigger than the Hunter?
This one, the small one here, is, you can see it, laying side by side.
Yeah, it is.
Can you see the monitor? So there are different sizes. Now, what I can tell you on the non-hunters, the question may come up, well, how do I know when I go to replace one in a year and a half or so, how do I know which number? Well, at least on Easy Wood brand, they have a number on the shank. There's CI5. And when you go to the store, the package says CI5. And you can compare it, but let's say you didn't bring this with you. As long as you know that number, that will match. So there's a way to kind of keep up with, okay, what size? Okay. Okay, let me come back to that. This question is on polishing. Here's another one. Can you see the difference in size? I don't know how close the focus may be, but there's another. So there's at least 3 or 4 different round sizes from Easywood brand. Below the chuck? Okay, where that. Okay, you can see that probably a little clearer. Now on this one right here, let's see, Ken, if we can get to that. Of the carbide cutters, Easywood is the only one that has a negative rake set. And they've just come out with, from the diamond cutter, negative rake, all the way up to the biggest, squarest, roundest, and so forth. I don't know how well you can see. I'm trying to adjust that a little bit. But the top of that has an angle to it, a slight angle to it. This one of a square, maybe you can see it on that better. There's a square cutter for that size, but it's got an angle to the top. These were created to, hang on, Paul. These were created to not only use on acrylics, they're not as aggressive, as well as some real dense woods. Is what these works on. So that was, but there's now a full line of negative rake cutters as well as the flat top from Easywood. I don't think Woodpecker has that yet. Paul? Okay. Okay. On the Hunter brand, it's pretty aggressive. More so, it's not a flat. And the Hunter brand tools, including who used to be with Hunter, Jimmy Clues, he created his, but they're cut at an angle, like a 30, 40 degree angle, as well as
The tool itself is.
that's right, the tool itself is. Okay. All right. Now the question, let me just go ahead. Well, let me do a drawing while I'm talking about it. The question was on sharpening. Didn't I hear that right? Okay. Typical question. I wondered about it when I first got some tools of, can you resharpen these? Let's see, what do you want to draw for? Thank you. You want a tool, a hat, a shirt? Tool. Another tool. Okay. Let's do this. There's a Rockler, and that is a hollowing tool. That's the biggest. 377. Okay. Now, are you interested in that tool? You want that tool? Okay. I don't want to try to force anything on anybody. So, okay. Now, here's the thing to know about sharpening any of the carbides. Now, let me first say that the negative rake, because of the angle that's coming off, you can't resharpen those. You can't match that angle. But where it's a flat, Ken, maybe I'll just do it down here on the bottom. Okay. You can flip that, you take it off, you can flip it upside down onto a diamond plate or something really flat, and you can, quote, put a new edge on it as I've heard it described. It's really fallacy in that none of us have equipment unless you're a really high-priced wood metal worker. You don't have the sharpening equipment to put the factory edge back on there. You can get it close, but here's what I have heard from several guys. Oh, I just pulled out my 600 grit little tin, and I just ran it across there. And I'm sure it's flat now. I'm sure it's sharper now. No, it's really not. Let me give you an illustration. If you were to make a cake and you wanted to frost it, and you wanted the top of that cake really smooth, and you saw me come up with a fork and kind of drag some lines, And I was questioned, well, what are you doing? I'm making this flat. But I've got all those fork lines. So if you use a sharpener that's pretty high grit, 600 or less, even 1,000, you're just kind of putting marks in your frosting. But in order to get it really smooth, you've got to come back with a palette and just really... I'm not told by the manufacturers what the actual sharpness is. Was told it's sharp enough to cut you and draw blood. And other comments, but I can't tell you what... But I can tell you that even I've got stones that go up to... Oh, good, thanks. I've got stones that go up to 16,000 grit. And that's still not as sharp. The other thing I found out just this week is that, well, maybe we can use that. This is where maybe I should have had a marker board. As you're using any of the tools, the carbide tip tools, and that wood is coming down on those, you're literally kind of rounding off that circle. And it's kind of curving down as it wears a little bit. So in order to really get it back close to factory, you've got to take some metal off. And most of us don't have that kind of equipment. You can probably extend the life of how much you use by maybe a year, but you're looking at about $15 to $18 to replace it. So it may be a question of what's the best use of your time and money. But just know that you've really got to step up. To put a new edge on this, you've got to step up to some pretty high grit, flat ceramic or diamond stones, more than the little 600 jobbies that I've heard talk about, to do any damage at all. Okay. I'm going to jump through some hoops pretty quick. I'll tell you what, John, pull a number. Well, let's give another hat away. To do beads and coves, well, here is a piece of poplar that I did these beads with a conventional tool, with a skew. And the line, what's the number, John? 378. 378. Okay, hand him a hat. Would you like a hat? Okay. I like the little logo. It says, it's our turn. From here, I did these beads with the Easy Wood Diamond detail. I'll send that around and you can see it's because in the past you couldn't do beads. You could certainly do coves. This I did, this piece right here, let's see, Ken, there we go. That's done totally with Easy Wood tools, with diamond or with carbide cutters. That's typically a shape that you would do with conventional tools. I did this piece yesterday. So sometimes you want a pretty sharp detail. I can now do that with that little micro cutter that we just gave away. This is pretty easy, the coves part with a curved cutter. And all I have to do, trust me. You just kind of come and work it. You don't even have to, like you would a typical gouge, come in one side and then come in the other and then try to match it and so forth. You're literally going back and forth. Okay. I would also tell you that here is probably my best effort with this piece with a real skew. And you can see some of the skew marks that all of us have faced when we tried to go in and do a skew and it jumped on us. And so it certainly can happen to all of us. But using that detailer, this is what I gave away. Well, let's see, I guess I have to lay it this way. Before now, you couldn't do a snowman like that because you couldn't get in there and make the curves and so forth. So there was, as well as on the top hat. So 14 of those last Christmas. I got tired of snowmen, but that's okay. Point out a couple of things. Here is a goblet, nothing new. One of my challenges to myself was, on this Mesquite Goblet, how thin up here at the edge can I make that? Now, I will tell you that this used to be a half an inch taller. And I got kind of a tickle on my nose and jumped. This is less than a 32nd of an inch thick. Send that around. You can see it while there's still time. So one of the questions has been, well, how thin can you turn something with carbide tip tools? And you'll see when that comes by that it's pretty thin. There is one additional tool. I've got one that has the ring cutter. I think if you had enough space, you probably could get in there. But I use, in addition to the detailer, then I've got another one that kind of is the hook. Sharon, what's that called? A captured ring.
Is that an easy wood tool, or is it?
It's not.
Okay.
Mine's Benjamin Best. You know, there's other brands, but I can't totally do that. Here's a piece. Okay, Ken, let's see, where should I hold it? Okay, this is a piece of tiger maple with a little over an inch hole, not very thick. I actually had a glue block on it, but from a hollowing standpoint, I use not only the number 1, number 2, and number 3 hollowers to get down into there, and coming in through here and working really carefully because I'm doing blind. I was quite pleased that I didn't come out the other side. Does have some coats of lacquer on it, so that's fine. This piece of Ambrosia Maple, again, was done with the hollowing system. A little bigger hole, a little easier, but you still kind of have to curve down in there. The tricky part of this was, my challenge to myself was, how thick of I've made a recess in here of about 1/8 of an inch. And then, does this chuck have enough hole that I can literally turn Ambrosia Maple? And I came back when I had flipped it over and cut down that thickness a little bit. But I did this entire piece with less than 1/8 of an inch of, okay, 37 and a half. No. Okay, I got some more t-shirts and hats. Number 382. You want a hat or a t-shirt? What size? XL. Okay, number 331.
1 or 2 XL.
Number 331. Okay, hat or t-shirt?
I'll take a
Hat. Okay. There you go. Sorry about that. Okay, the question is, what cutting tip if you're a beginner? I would almost recommend the full size, the round. Yeah, I would learn on the round and then go to the square or whatever. But I think I would start with, if you're just buying your first one and you have it available, get a round cutter. Yeah, because I can do pins, I can do bowls, I can do hollowing, so forth. Okay, right. With all of the carbides, because they're so sharp, you can do, here's for instance a piece of spalted maple that I was able to not only keep the bark on, but you'll see parts that have wormholes in there, as well as some punkiness, because it's so sharp. This is a piece, just a regular bowl, of black and white ebony, but you can feel the thickness. I was able to really kind of feel it out and kind of feel, why don't we start with one on one side and one on the other. Well, I know you can, but you have to be careful. Gary, did you do some Did you do some turquoise? With epoxy. You've epoxied the turquoise into a hole? Right. Let's do this last. Yeah, draw one. Okay, I'm going to give, so that I don't want to end up with this. I want you to have it. Okay, the number for this $200 and whatever set of Rockler tools, midsize, 327. Now, the one thing that Rockler does different, wait a minute, if you don't know for sure, here, Jimmy, come here. What they put a coating on the outside of their wooden handles as a feature that they like to have and so forth. It may work for you, it may not. But there's the three tools. Yeah, thank Rockler. Okay, let me look at my notes. Acrylics. Look at this real quick, and then we're out of time. Okay, you can either do it or you can make your own. Here's wood and acrylic. Oops, let me get into my monitor here. There's a block of wood and acrylic. There's a guy at SWAT that's there every year and has some of these, but you can find it online too. Australian Molly, coupled with different colors there. Here's one with kind of a black. This is Molly and black and white from that block, from a different block, but. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so there's one where I've made kind of a small vase. And I'm going to pass this around. You can see I haven't polished that. That's just literally roughed out and a little bit of sanding, but not much. But you can feel the hollowing. And with that, for hollowing purposes, you can either certainly use smaller angles or larger angles. These both happen to be from Easy Wood Tool. I don't think that Woodpecker has any hollowing tools. Matter of fact, I'm trying to think if, Paul, do you think of anybody besides Easy Wood that has the curved? I don't know of anybody else. Okay, Hunter, that is true. Hunter has some. From Easy Wood in your brochure, it should talk about a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3. Okay. Number 3 is the larger of the curved. Right. And quite frankly, in my opinion, you could do a number 1 and a number 3 and skip number 2 if you wanted to. Number 2 is going to get you around the edge, but not right under the lip. So, but I've got all 3 and use all 3. So, good question. Okay. One of my challenges that I told our crew is I want to finish before 9 o'clock because I know what our minds do at 9 o'clock. They just shut down and we start leaving. So, one more question. Anyone have one other question? Okay.
Is still 90 degrees level going in? Same technique?
Same technique. I come straight off level. Now, my personal approach is I like to use the full-size standard cutter on pins. I go with the round, and then I come back with the square. And I do. I will tilt it some to get more of a shear cut. I wish I had time to show you this, but I know we don't. I wanted to have something to literally show you. I took a piece of box elder that was spalting, the red color. This is literally just yesterday. And for this bowl, and you can see it's I started turning that yesterday. One of my helps, let's see, Ken, if I'll help you, is I put it in the shavings because this is still about 20, moisture content of about 20. Still needs to come down, so I don't want this to crack. I kind of let it dry in the shavings. But what you can see by using carbide tipped, I'm not dealing with chunks. I'm dealing with some pretty fine shavings all the way through, both outside as well as inside. Correct. Just put it all back in there and let it keep drying. So I had this made to kind of show you, but we're out of time. Yes. Ask me after. Okay, now we're going to get the, John's going to give you some instructions on what to do from here.
Do we need anything else?
Oh,
The shirts or hats?
you want to take
Got
time
me
to
on?
get-
Okay.
Let's do 3 more giveaways. I mean, I don't need them. I've got hats
Do
and
the
shirts.
drawings, and then we're going to need some help getting the chairs and all that set up. And